Love it. And usually authors who are like, oh, I'm just gonna let my characters do whatever and see what happens. Uh, Usually that doesn't go well because sometimes while they write, they're thinking like, oh, now I know what I want my story to be about, and now I'm gonna send it into this direction, even though that new direction is completely different from the initial promise that the writer gave you with the premises and so on. So it can go wrong pretty easily. But if you have your premise, you have your mystery, and you plan on unveiling the mystery, like you have the bare minimum of a structure of, the skeleton of your story, even if it's just one bone that you have. And you let the characters do the magic then, but you still, keep it about that mystery, that initial reason why you started the story, then I think that's peak writing. See, that's a gardener. Well, when we talked about gardeners and architects, that's peak gardener thing, like doing it right, doing gardening right in fiction. So I'm never sitting here and asking myself, oh, when are we gonna back to the main story? Like, when are we gonna go back to the main point of the story? Which is what I did during Berserk all the time. Like, there's the main fucking events in the Golden Age arc, and then we don't deal with that later on. Like, you have all these filler arcs, filler characters basically, and you're just wondering, can we go back to the main point? Can we, like, go back to the reason why we're actually here on this journey? That was me reading Berserk, whereas I don't have that when I read Dorohedoro. Everything is still part of the story. It still makes sense. So that's how it's done right, gardening. When you write a story and you let the characters do, you can end up with chaos, because when you start a story, you start with a promise. You promise the reader to be in the genre of, let's say, dark fantasy, right? You promise the reader a story about a guy who's looking for a revenge for something that was done to him and his family of friends before. He wants to resolve the issue between him and his former friend who betrayed him. And that's the promise you give your readers. Everything else that you do then, let's say change genres, let's say change the entire point of the story, change the entire tone and the strategy and how you approach the story. Because if it was a straight line towards that point before, and then you change it and you make it chaos and filler arcs and whatever, you're basically breaking a promise as a writer. You promised dark fantasy. You promised me someone who wants to deal with his inner demons and the person that caused these inner demons, right? I want to know about that, because that's what you gave me for like 20 chapters, or like, let's say 5 years of the series running, 5 years, and then you completely change it. That's what can happen when you just let loose, when you don't have a plan, when you don't. I'm not like, I heard that Miura had a plan, and like that he wrote everything the way he planned it. Although I don't believe Mori about that. Like, I really don't believe him that everything was planned from the very beginning when Miura made the story. I don't buy it, because if you read interviews with Miura, he was pretty lost. He didn't know what to do with Berserk. So I don't buy what Mori said about that. But even if he had planned what to do, he didn't really execute it well, Miura. He didn't execute it well. He went on too many tangents. And if he hadn't planned and just wanted to see what happens with the characters, then that was pure chaos that happened. He strayed a lot. But I think Berserk is maybe a wrong like not an ideal example that I took for this phenomenon that I said promises that are broken while you're writing your story and just letting your characters loose. Other stories would fit that probably a lot better than Berserk, because Berserk was just because a man, an author, didn't know what to do with his characters anymore. Like, he genuinely didn't know. And then, you know, went on side quests to figure out what else to do while at least keeping the tone of the story, you know, adult, with lots of gore and adult materials. So at least he stayed with the theme, you know, darkness and darkness of humanity. He at least stayed with that tone until he just started writing just high fantasy, and it was more shonen with a side of gore. So he even changed genres, basically. Broke a promise there already. But yeah, I think other stories probably fit my description better of what I said, how you fail when you just let your characters lose themselves in the story and you don't pay up, you know, with the promise. Whereas that is the main focus when you're a writer. You just set something up and then you need a payoff. Like, you need to come back to that initial start as to why you wrote that story. Story would have ended very quickly if it didn't make it go on tangents. No. I mean, even if it's a yes, like quality over quantity, I don't need a long story, I just need a good story. But that's not the main point. I've already bashed Berserk in many streams. I'm trying to one day make a vibe check video on Berserk where I just put all my complaints into one video. But Berserk is basically just the Golden Age arc is really good, and the rest is really bad. Except for some aspects. For example, an aspect of changing from revenge to trying to find a resolution for your negative emotions. That's a good aspect that I don't think was executed well. Not at all. So, it's just a Golden Age arc, which is maybe 10% of the manga, or maybe like 30% of the manga, I don't know, is good, and the rest, which is the rest of the 70%, is really bad, in my opinion. Really bad. Berserk, Hunter x Hunter, Bleach, 20th Century Boys, Tokyo Revengers, and Grashros are some series that I think the authors should have just sold the idea and let directive manga managers handle the rest. Yes, better than letting it go or shitting in it. Yes, I agree. Like, I agree that a lot of these manga, if they had just had a good editor, a good management, they would have been good. But like this, they're just celebrated because they had iconic arcs, or one iconic arc, and then you stay loyal because of that arc. But if you're actually not blind, then you realize that they're actually not that good. That they strayed a lot, and everything that made them good is completely lost. That they were something completely different, and maybe if it was a separate manga, then it would have been good, but within that manga that it started as, it's just bad. Like, when you compare it to what it was in the past and what it is now, then it's not good. If you can really say that what it is now, it's really bad compared to what it was in the past. What about the Lost Children arc? I hate the Lost Children arc. It's so dumb. It's so useless. Why was it there? Why does it exist? What was the point? Who said it was the best? I've never heard people hype it. Most people think it's okay. No, everyone, Hutch, everyone I know is like, when are we gonna get the Lost Children arc animated? Oh my god, we need the Lost Children arc animated. One of the best arcs ever. Think about it. Berserk has 3 anime adaptations, or adaptations in general. And 1997 anime, then the movies, and then the 2016 onwards anime. So the Lost Children arc had 3 chances to get animated. if 3 separate productions decided it was just so dumb and useless that it didn't need an adaptation, then it should tell you all you need to know. It's a useless arc that doesn't need an adaptation because it's just useless. 3 separate occasions and it never got adapted into the story. That's how you know that it's not a good story. Like, that's not a good arc. Every Berserk arc to me was at least a 9 out of 10, except the Black Swordsman arc, which was like a 7 out of 10. Honestly, Golden Age arc and then the Black Swordsman arc, because at least the Black Swordsman arc it still makes sense. Like, it's still part of the main plot, part of the main story. It was the beginning of it all. It was what we were given as a reader first. And then, the flashback to see how we got to that present that we were given first. The rest is just fucking chaos. You can see that Miura had no fucking clue what he wanted to do with Berserk. So yeah, like, Swordsman was just too edgy for the sake of it. Yeah, I know. But it was following Black Swordsman arc. Miura was just following trends at the time. He's just following trends, edgy lone wolf, doing revenge, being brutal, muscle man. And it shouldn't surprise you because Miura doesn't really have any original thing except for the Golden Age arc. Because later on, all the other characters are tropes too. All the other characters and their stories are just tropes taken from other mangas, and it's not original at all. So, it's not really surprising that Miura that the Black Swordsman arc wasn't good. It wasn't good because Miura was not really a good writer in my opinion. Like, I for a long time I thought the Golden Age arc must have been like a ghostwriter or something, because I just couldn't explain to myself how everything except the Golden Age arc is just so shit. Like, it's completely shit. But, yeah, it shouldn't surprise you that the Black Swordsman arc was edgy, and the rest is also edgy. If you think the Lost Children arc is not edgy, then I don't know what the fuck you're on about. It's the same. Like, Miura has never been really original. The only original part, as I said, is in the the Golden Age arc. That's the only original arc, in my opinion. The rest is just so dumb and regurgitated and overdone, basically, in every genre of manga and anime out there. Oh yeah, quick question. What's your take about the new Berserk chapter? I haven't read the last one Miura drew. I dropped Berserk 5 years ago. I have no idea which chapter you mean. Because I honestly couldn't take it anymore. It was just shit. It was time to let go. Which is why people, when people said, oh, Miura should just continue drawing, or Miura should just drop Berserk, like make an announcement to drop Berserk, or just make one ending and that's it, and then be done with the story and then start something new. I was like, I don't care, because I've already buried Berserk. I don't care what Miura does to the story anymore. And then Miura passed away. Sadly, rest in peace. And I didn't mind that because a lot of people are like, oh no, Berserk is never gonna get an ending. And I'm like, so what? But now it was announced that it is getting an ending. Basically, his best friend is continuing the legacy. So it is getting an ending. Even without Miura. Which I also really don't care about. I wouldn't care about it. But I do care because it's his best friend, and he told his best friend what he wants the ending to be like. I want to see what his best friend, only because it's his best friend, because Miura talked about his relationship with Mori. At that time, we probably didn't know who it was, but his best friend, mangaka best friend, that was a parallel to, like, the story of Guts, Griffith, and Casca. It was a parallel to his own life and his own relationships with people in his life. And he has a best friend, and you know that their bond was really strong. So, I want to see what this best friend that had such an influence on Miura when he wrote the story of Berserk, I want to see how that best friend continues Miura's legacy. It is, I think, the only good and respectful way to continue Berserk, in my opinion. So that couldn't have been a better decision for Berserk, in my opinion. So I want to get back into Berserk just because it's Modi that's continuing it. Just because of him. I'm also happy with Modi continuing it because the announcement said they're sticking to the plot strongly, and that means they won't drift away at all, so no fillers. Yeah, which is also something that I am a little worried about, because Berserk for the past 20-something years was just drifting and chaos, and now suddenly it's like a straight line. That's also like a tone shift, which, I mean, I'm glad it's happening, but it should have been done like this from the very beginning. Have you read any of Modi's works? No. I recently got into Holy Land, and while I think he's talented, his style is more suited to a webtoon than manga, in my opinion, if that makes sense. But Modi is not drawing Berserk, he's just directing it. Just like Miura did with his assistants. He's just directing it. He's not drawing it. His assistant, Studio Gaga, is gonna draw it. So Berserk is gonna retain its... Honestly, I don't like the style that it got. Like, Golden Age arc and later on, up until the end of the Farnese and Serpico arc. There the style was good. The end of the what was it called? Conviction arc. Conviction arc is the one that I meant. There the art style is good and the rest is just nah, I don't like it. Especially when the Fantasia arc starts. What the fuck is that? People are like, hey, it's still good. Yeah, it's good if you compare it to other mangas, but if you compare it to Berserk, it's not good. People can read Duranki if they want to see a work by Studio Gaga. Yeah, but that got dropped too. That was a really long tangent. I should stop talking about Berserk right now.